Yeah, I was really impressed. I feel like this level of play you could absolutely have seen in much higher age divisions. These players had really interesting insights into a lot of important predictions. They had good board management of a lot of pieces. I'm really excited that these two players are enjoying Pokemon so much that they're giving us over and over again all these incredible final showings, coming up with all of these interesting teams and game plans into each other. I'm really excited for these players to show up on streams in the future, maybe facing each other, maybe facing other players in the juniors division.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a division that doesn't get the same shine as the Masters division, just because the Swiss portions aren't streamed. We typically only see the finals, but the juniors just definitely have always given us a treat in these juniors finals at international events. So another one in the books here. We are actually going to see Magnus become the Latin American international champion, and really just such a deserved victory there. It felt like in that game 3, even though he was getting the terrestrialization calls incorrectly, where he would actually have gotten a little bit more damage if he had gone for another move, he had the foresight to actually position himself where that wouldn't be immediately game losing even if he got those decisions incorrectly. But congratulations once again to both of the juniors finalists on their immense finishes here at the International Championship of Latin America. But we're actually going to move on to the older divisions, where we're going to see Matthew Henry of Australia square up against Charlie Kim from the USA in finals.
Yeah, and this is quite a matchup we have in store. I'm really excited to be able to feature these two players. Matthew Henry, notable for having had some really strong showings also in online tournaments with no age division restriction, coming out on top ahead of a lot of Masters Division players and really leveraging a team that he has a lot of experience with. Charlie Kim, though, coming off of a top 8 finish in a recent World Championships, I believe it was 2024. Both of these players have a ton of amazing regional finishes, and they're actually going to be showing us something pretty close to a mirror once we get over to those teams. It's going to be really exciting to see.
Yeah, going to be some slight deviations between the players' EV spreads and their actual terrestrialization types, but I do want to highlight, usually due to the lack of broadcasting of the younger age divisions, we don't know a lot of the players that they encountered in the bracket. But in this case, we actually have seen Matthew Henry overcome the world champion Kevin Hahn in the senior division in his top 8 match. So absolutely on a tear through this tournament. But Charlie Kim is definitely going to give him a run for his money in this near exact mirror. There are some deviations, which we'll go into in a bit. But yeah, definitely Charlie has... They've actually played in the Swiss rounds of the portion. I believe that Charlie came out on top in the round 6 before making it into the top cut. So definitely a matchup that both of these players have been thinking a lot about and how to approach it for this finals.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be able to showcase the teams in a little bit, but a lot of really interesting decisions from both of these players that I think are a testament to them really having thought through these mirrors as well. Really interesting, though. Matthew's been using, I think, the same team for quite a while in this tournament, so maybe has a little bit more familiarity to lean back on when he's going through all of this extra prep work for a high-stakes match with this team.
Yeah, absolutely. This team, something that Matthew was able to win a tournament with all age divisions on the online circuit, basically able to best multiple masters on the way to his title of that tournament. So definitely something he's used to playing and playing at an exceptionally high level. And yeah, Charlie has all 6 of the same Pokemon, some differences, but it's definitely a mirror that both of them have played a fair amount. But you have to imagine that Matthew, having played this throughout the season of Regulation H, definitely has a bit of a matchup advantage, most likely in terms of familiarity, actually.
Yeah, the other factor these players have to consider as they're going into this matchup is the stakes of this match. Both players have made an incredible accomplishment making it to the finals of an international tournament and will be able to have a scholarship, perhaps going towards university, to be able to this is just like a wonderful accomplishment for both of them to be able to showcase, but I'm sure both of them are gunning for that $5,000 prize and the prestige of being able to be an international champion. So very high stakes for both of these players as they jump into a match that I'm sure they spent a lot of time preparing for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the title is for of their brains, but the additional cash prizing that goes to a potential scholarship, definitely extremely appreciated for them. We're actually going into the game now, or at least team preview of the game. So we're gonna we're no longer going to be pressing in on both the prizing and the stakes of the tournament. We're actually just going to get the game plan. Going to be an extremely exciting match between two fierce competitors at the top of their game, playing a near exact same team. We're actually not quite in the gameplay, but we're going to be looking at, I believe, both of their teams now.
Yeah, so jumping into these teams, you can see in the background, they are actually going to both be featuring this Kilowattrol plus Ursaluna strategy, which we just saw win in the Masters Division, Las Vegas Regionals. So some really interesting little technical differences that we'll be able to break down into once we see these team sheets. But first, we're going to just take a second to look at this matchup here. Yep, so we've got the standard Incineroar, Amoonguss, Ursaluna, Goldengo, Kilowattrol, Porygon 2 on both sides with almost exactly the same item choice, but one really key difference, which is that the Goldengo on Charlie's side is holding that Ogloff Berry, likely a slower, bulkier version relative to the Life Orb Goldengo, which is maybe a little bit faster and more offensive on Matthew's side of the field.
Yeah, both of the teams being so similar definitely gives us allows us to save our breath necessarily in talking about two highly distinct teams. They both have similar broad game plans. We have both the Porygon 2 Ursaluna composition, allowing the typically slower Ursaluna to function really well in the Trick Room, the extremely bulky Incineroar Amoonguss switching combination, the setup Nasty Plot Goldengo to try and sweep through teams with the combination of Incineroar and Amoonguss supporting them, and then the Kilowattrol as a bit of a mix-up Pokemon. Number one, an Incineroar deterrent with the competitive ability allowing the Kilowattrol to get to a +2 special attack stat if it faces down an Incineroar's Intimidate. And of course, the Tailwind, very critical, allowing the Ursaluna to suddenly outspeed Pokemon that would normally outspeed it. You can get that speed advantage as a potential option there. And you can also set up the Goldengo with Tailwind after it's gotten a Nasty Plot up to be a really devastating, fast, and strong special attacking sweeper.
The other thing that these speed control options gives in this particular setup is a lot less ambiguity about what the speed order is going to be. These players have had a chance to play each other in Swiss already, and so they know maybe some of the speed orders of the two teams, but they might not know everything. There's still some possible speed ties on the Incineroars and Ursalunas in particular, and one side just being able to set up a Tailwind would remove that ambiguity and allow someone to make some stronger game plans around moving first and taking KOs pretty quickly. So we'll have to see if these players choose to feature things like the Kilowattrol, or if they focus more on the other pieces like the bulkier pivoting from the Amoonguss and the Incineroar, and just setting up their Goldengos properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the Goldengo setting up, we do see that's where the difference in the items between the two Goldengos actually plays a really critical role. Where the Life Orb Goldengo on Matthew's side, it can actually hit a lot harder before it's set up and much harder after. You're able to potentially take knockouts with Make It Rain into the Amoonguss. The Ursaluna, probably not the Porygon 2, but the rest, just able to do a whole lot of damage to after only one setup turn. The Goldengo on Charlie's side probably needs to get two Nasty Plots up to get 2+4 special attack to actually take those same 1-hit KOs, just because of the lack of the additional firepower from the Life Orb. In exchange, though, you get the healing of a Guavberry when you go below, I believe it is 25% HP. You're able to heal 1/3 of your HP back, and as a result of that, you're able to just get to a much healthier state of HP. You're not taking Life Orb chip every turn. And as a result, if you're trained bulky enough, you're able to survive a +2 Life Orb Shadow Ball from the opposing Goldengo if you've already gone for your Terrestrialization. So that's something that both the players have probably played towards in some of their sets, but they've done that strategy against each other. Is going to be a little bit tricky, but yeah, definitely just some one thing to be looking at, the major difference between those teams.
Yeah, absolutely. The really key factor that these Goldengo have in terms of their own interaction, Charlie being able to maybe safely survive a powerful attack from the other Goldengo and then KO back, is really important, but it also has a lot of ramifications for which supporting cast members each player chooses to bring. On Charlie's side, there's maybe more of a concern about a Goldengo with a +2 special attack boost and a Life Orb starting to take KOs on pieces like the Amoonguss or the Ursaluna, whereas Matthew might have a little bit more freedom to make use of those two pieces, bringing them and not having them immediately threatened by KOs from the Goldengo on Charlie's side. So we might actually see some differences in the choices of which Pokemon each player brings to the match, just from this one key difference in how the Goldengos are trained and their items.
Yeah, I like that you honed in on the Ursaluna, because it is true. If the Ursaluna can just get knocked out in one hit from Charlie's side, then you really do need to be prioritizing speed control to make sure that it can outspeed and knock out the Goldengo before it knocks out it. We actually do see the Porygon 2 and the Goldengo and the Kilowattrol led by Charlie and Matthew respectively, so kind of indicating that maybe a bit bulkier of an approach from Charlie's side against the more Tailwind-oriented Kilowattrol lead on Matthew's side.
Yeah, these players deviating very dramatically from each other's strategies right away. One of them going for the fast and offensive angle, and the other going for a bulkier Trick Room mode. This Kilowattrol could have been really useful against a lot of the other options, and is still maybe really impactful because it makes the Terrestrialization from Charlie's Goldengo a little bit less safe. It is a Water Terra, on Charlie's side. So being able to avoid that Shadow Ball weakness is going to be a little bit riskier. But we are going to see Matthew going ahead and swapping it out. Kilowattrel, not super comfortable against a Porygon 2 in particular, and just going to pivot into the nice and safe Incineroar. Almost always a safe switch in, and definitely in this case going to be a nice way to set up some better board position. Although we do see the Goldengo pivoting out from Charlie's side, potentially into that Ursaluna, going to be able to get a Flame Orb boost at the end of this turn. Also has dodged the Intimidate and could be in a really good spot. Oh, wow! Catching the Shadow Ball on the switch in, no damage taken, Trick Room set up, and the Ursaluna is going to get burned. And it's not intimidated, and there's no way for Matthew to switch and intimidate. That turn, I don't think could possibly have gone better for Charlie. What a wonderful turn of events for that side.
Yeah, truly couldn't have gone any better because the Kilowattrel was the fastest Pokemon in the field, and switch order is determined by speed. The Kilowattrel switches into the Incineroar first, and then the Ursaluna comes in, so it's still at neutral attack, and at the end of the turn activates the Guts Flame Orb combination to give it a 1.5 boost to all of its attack moves, and Trick Room goes up with 2 ground types weak on the field. We see the Incineroar fearing that is going to be switching out, although a Facade in that slot probably going to get close to a knockout, would bring down this Kilowattrel to a Focus Sash, and we do see the safe Facade come out. Going to be a bringing it down to the Focus Sash. If we see a follow-up with a Terra Blast or an Ice Beam, that's a clean KO, and it is the Terra Blast knocking out the Kilowattrel in one hit. That's really critical, not only because it's a Pokemon down, so the Incineroar can cycle in a little bit less easily, you've also removed the competitive Pokemon on Matthew's side, so if you have your own Incineroar in the back, you can easily use it to lower the attack stat on the Incineroar on Matthew's side, or just sponge up the special attacking hits from the Goldengo a little bit better.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty crucial factor if Charlie's last Pokemon is the Incineroar, which would definitely be a pretty strong choice here. If it isn't the Incineroar, though, Matthew is now getting close to being in position to have his own Ursaluna potentially take advantage of the Trick Room. The big disadvantage is that it doesn't have that Guts active just yet. It does still have the option to go for enough damage to potentially finish off the Ursaluna on Charlie's side, having established some damage already. But we are seeing Matthew just beginning to dwindle a bit in terms of resources. A Pokemon down already with quite a few turns of Trick Room left, and potentially, if Matthew's Pokemon are a little bit faster, this could continue to snowball in Charlie's favor.
Yeah, I think this is one of the situations where knowing the speed tiers between the Ursalunas, which both of the players most likely do, having already played out a best-of-3 set in the Swiss portion of the tournament, really influences how unsafe or aggressive they can play with their Ursalunas here. We see the Goldengo, we're seeing 2 Pokemon cycle out, neither the Ursaluna, I believe, the Porygon 2 switching out to the Incineroar to apply an Intimidate, and Matthew also liking that idea, switches in the Intimidate. Critically gets it on Charlie's Incineroar, while his Incineroar is still fresh, so to speak, but we are going to see the resource of Terrestrialization finally come out on one of these Pokemon. I believe we saw Matthew go for his own Terrestrialization, and it is to the Ghost, and both are actually Ghost Terra, so not entirely certain which one it is yet, but we're going to see that it is the Headlong Rush coming out from Charlie's Ursaluna, underspeeding in Trick Room and thus moving first due to the reversal of the speed conditions. From Trick Room, we see Facade answer back with a knockout into his own Ursaluna, and it's actually not because it has not, wasn't able to get the KO due to the Intimidate, it looks like. Oh, because the burn hadn't activated.
Rush. Yeah. Matthew going for a way to try to get some damage off, maybe when Charlie could have potentially expected to protect, but even with the defense drop, because of that Incineroar switch in, the Ursaluna is still safe on Charlie's side. It will feint to one more turn of Burn Tick or to a Fake Out from the Incineroar, but with the Terrestrialization option still available from Charlie, there's a potential to still get a little bit more damage off from this Ursaluna. It's already done so much damage and it has a chance to do even a little bit more, as we see Incineroar pivoting out once more, saving its Intimidate for a little bit later, and Porygon 2 finally getting that special attack boost as it pivots back in.
Yeah, Charlie might look silly to be going for a Terrestrialization just to allow your Ursaluna to go down to the burn on the following turn, but because the Incineroar came in this turn with Goldengo in the back with no Terrestrialization available, Headlong Rush should always take a KO, or at least roughly 90% of the HP on the Incineroar slot, if it is trained to survive that, as long as you outspeed. And we do see the Ursaluna confirming it is faster 2 consecutive turns, and now we see the Incineroar go down, showing the value, dodging the Fake Out due to the Terra Ghost. You will go down this turn, but definitely a favorable trade in knocking out this Incineroar. Extremely decisive KO there, as we see Headlong Rush target into Porygon 2. It is able to survive due to the Intimidate earlier in the battle, and can potentially go for a Recover to survive the next hit, but again will depend on the training of the Ursaluna on Matthew's side. whether the Porygon 2 on Charlie's is going to be able to outspeed that Ursaluna on subsequent turns of Trick Room.
Really crucially, because Matthew's down to just 2 Pokemon left, the Intimidate that Charlie got down earlier on that Ursaluna is going to stick for the entire rest of the game, and Charlie has the option to bring Incineroar back in at some point to get this Ursaluna down to -2 attack. So even though the Flame Orb is active, this Ursaluna is going to have its work cut out for it to be able to still be doing enough damage or taking KOs here. I think it might still be able to finish off that Porygon 2 if it's slow enough, but other than that, the long-term damage potential from Matthew's side is going to be a little bit tough to find here.
Yeah, we saw that the Ursaluna was slower on Charlie's side, and because these Ursalunas on the teams generally are faster than the Porygon 2s, Charlie might know that he's guaranteed to be slower with the Porygon 2, just something we as casters don't know, but the players most likely do. But yeah, this Incineroar looking really well primed with the Terrestrialization to the Ghost typing. Every remaining Pokemon on the field on Charlie's side, or on Matthew's side, is weak to that knockoff. Once Trick Room goes down, if you're the faster Incineroar, you can knock off that Ursaluna for a safe KO with the Headlong Rush drops. As we see the Porygon 2 switching out, didn't like its position, it appears. Oh, it's actually perhaps Trick Room had ended. I'm not sure if I missed that, but yeah, the Incineroar does knock out the Ursaluna here with the knockoff, and now it's just Goldengo against the world, against the rest of Charlie's team.
Yeah, Goldengo versus an Incineroar, already at -1 special attack now. We see how much damage that Goldengo does, and that's actually the most damage Goldengo will be able to do for the rest of this match. So that's going to be really tough. And that is, Trick Room did not end until this turn. So we now have confirmed, at least as casters, knowing that the Incineroar on Charlie's side is in fact slower than the Ursaluna on Matthew's side. So maybe an extra indicator for why Matthew was going for that Tailwind mode with a much faster Ursaluna, and Charlie was happy to play into that Trick Room with a lot of slow Pokemon coming to the game this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. A 3-0 victory for Charlie there, taking game 1 in this Latin American International Championships Senior Division Finals, looking to mirror the result of their Swiss encounter, where Charlie was able to win that battle to progress to the top cut. Starting to try and calm his nerves. He's on the verge of a victory here, but he has to stay locked in because there was some critical mistakes that Matthew made in that battle. Charlie did get a little bit more mileage from the Ursaluna than he probably should have, given the mistake on Matthew's side to go for a Facade instead of the more powerful Headlong Rush before the Guts Flame Orb combination had activated on his Ursaluna. So definitely a decisive victory there, but has to account for his opponent adjusting to his mistakes and make sure that he's able to close out this next game.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because going for the Headlong Rush carries so much risk with it as well. Losing that defense boost in a situation where a lot of Matthew's switch options were already gone. Like, I think where things really were tough was Matthew, having lost that Kilowattrel so early, had just really limited options and really needed to be careful about managing the stat debuffs on the Ursaluna side. That Facade we saw almost was enough to KO, but just with Charlie pivoting in the Incineroar, maybe even expecting that Facade, managing to let that Ursaluna hang on, a lot of just really well-managed resources for Charlie, forcing Matthew to take some really negative trades in order to be able to make progress. We are going to see the same lead from Charlie's side and the Kilowattrel coming out again from Matthew, but Matthew noticing, hey, whoever got their Ursaluna set up first won last time around. So this time around, maybe I should just start with my Ursaluna and start going for a lot of big damage right from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. You're threatening a potential Thunderbolt Headlong Rush, and regardless of Terrestrialization, if the Goldengo does not protect, that combo would take a knockout due to it to being a Terra Water. We're actually going to see the Goldengo not liking the pressure it's undergoing this point. Goes for a switch out into the Ursaluna on Charlie's side, so maybe just seeing a mirror of the previous game, going for Trick Room, switch to the Ursaluna to activate the speed control as well as activate the Flame Orb on his side, as we see the Ghost Terrestrialization coming out from the Ursaluna on Matthew's side. Doesn't want to make himself susceptible to an Ice Beam, which would be super effective, or even more catastrophic would be a Terra fighting Terra Blast into that. No Terra on Charlie's side, as we see the Kilowattrel go for a defensive play in the face of the Porygon 2, as we see the Ursaluna moving first, confirming the speed order that the Ursaluna is, well, unless there is a Trick Room coming out from the Porygon 2, but in most likely it is going to be the Ursaluna faster than all the Pokemon on the field, which is now reversed. It should now be the slowest Pokemon on the field outside of the Kilowattrel, with the Trick Room reversing the speed order.
And the Flame Orb activation confirming that this is really, as we likely already knew, not a speed type, just a slower Ursaluna from Charlie's side of the field. So that sets Charlie up to have definitely not as strong a position as last time, because Charlie's position last time was just incredible. but still a very, very strong position. 4 turns of moving first pretty consistently against most of the Pokemon. Gonna force some switches from Matthew's side of the field. Nice for Matthew, though, to have an Ursaluna of his own sitting out here now. Going to be able to threaten a lot of damage in return. Even though it's moving second, it's not threatened by any KOs this time around. And Matthew still has the opportunity to start setting up some Intimidates. Going to be able to pivot and Incineroar in. It is going to feint, though, to a double up on what used to be the Kilowattrel. So that one Intimidate is the only Intimidate Matthew will be able to get this whole game. This is going to have to do a lot of damage in return to really make the most of this. But it is a KO on the Ursaluna on Charlie's side of the field from a headlong rush here.
Yeah, critically gets the KO on the Ursaluna, doesn't bite into, but critically does go for the headlong rush, not the Facade. If Charlie had wanted to, he could have gone for the Terra Ghost there to try and dodge a Facade, so Matthew wanted to cover that. Goes for the 100% or neutral damage with the headlong rush, which would have knocked out the Incineroar potentially, the Gholdengo, and taken the final KO on the Ursaluna. However, the exchange for that is that you do lower your defense stat, making you potentially susceptible to a knockoff KO this turn due to going for the Ghost Terra. Well, Ice Beam not going to do the same, but yeah, to cover for that, Matthew brings in the Kilowattrel, trying to punish that Incineroar coming in, and does net the Defiance, or the competitive, +2 special attack boost as a result of that.
Yeah, I really like this strategy. We saw before that Charlie is able to use this Incineroar to pressure Ursaluna so much, especially after it's gone for the Terastallization. But this Ursaluna is now giving the opportunity for Kilowattrel to be able to get off a big attack, as I believe that's a knockoff going into the Ursaluna, so Kilowattrel free and clear to use a +2 special attack, but that is an Ice Beam going down to activate Kilowattrel's Focus Sash. If this Kilowattrel freezes, that could be game over for Matthew, but if it doesn't, that's a really powerful Thunderbolt coming out. Going to be able to get Porygon 2 down really low, so some nice damage coming out from Matthew's side of the field at least.
Yeah, I quite like splitting the damage up there. Even though you had a KO, if you doubled up into either of the slots, you now have the Kilowattrel in range for a KO from any attack for the rest of the game. And there is a potential that a knockoff just KOs the Ursaluna at -1 due to its Ghost typing being on the field, due to the -1 from the Headlong Rush earlier in the game. So although got the better of the turn in that he didn't lose a Pokemon there and got a lot of damage on Matthew's side, the Ursaluna is still in critical danger here from a knockout from the knockoff. Going to be hard to play defensively to get around that here on Matthew's side.
Yeah, Charlie steadily improving board position here, and now is in a situation where there's no valid switch into this knockoff. Anything that comes in is going to have to take a super effective hit. So it's going to be Gholdengo setting itself up to be hit by potentially a knockoff, losing its life orb for the rest of the game. Kilowattrel nearly forced to go for a Protect here, trying to buy some more time in this Trick Room. We are going to see that knockoff going out. Gholdengo now pretty low. It does survive, but definitely not nearly as valid of an option. Ice Beam is not going to get the KO, so Gholdengo very crucially buying a little bit more time. That's going to give Matthew a lot more options going forward in this final turn of Trick Room, with a near full health Ursaluna in the back, and a Gholdengo that will be faster after this turn and has Protect available.
Yeah, you can see what Charlie was going for there. If you take the knockout, there's a chance you can maybe on the last turn of Trick Room go for a Recover so that your Porygon 2 can set up one final Trick Room to avoid the Speed Order from getting out of control there. But however, now with 2 Pokemon that can go for a... Well, actually, I think the Kilowattrel does have to go for a double Protect this turn, unless I missed an attack in the previous turn. But yeah, the Gholdengo just trying to stall at the last turn, goes for attack. No Protect from the Kilowattrel, goes for an attack. Knockoff coming out, but critically, you might not actually need the Tailwind here due to the presence of the Ursaluna revealing in the previous game that it should outspeed all the Pokemon on the field currently. And very importantly, we do not see a Recover from the Porygon 2, which means that it might be susceptible to damage. It's certainly susceptible to a KO from the Make It Rain on the subsequent turn. Definitely a strong offensive position for Matthew that he's found here. And even with the knockoff being knocked off, the Life Orb being knocked off on the Gholdengo means that you don't knock yourself out to a Make It Rain this turn. So yeah, really was able to navigate out of this Trick Room expertly.
Yeah, that was a really important call, not going for the attack with the Gholdengo last turn, even though the Porygon 2 could have recovered, and now sets this Gholdengo up to be able to get the KO on the Porygon 2 this turn. And now, because the Ursaluna is faster on Matthew's side of the field, now that Trick Room is gone, Matthew's able to tell a very different story from last game with the Ursaluna taking a KO on the Incineroar, instead of the Incineroar doing a bunch of damage to that Ursaluna. And that brings Charlie down to just his very last Pokemon against 2 Pokemon, both of which are threatening quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, we're going to see the Gholdengo come out on Charlie's side. However, we're going to see the speed interactions, at least from the Gholdengos here, most likely. That would be critical for the rest of the battle, and maybe give us a better idea of why these players are going for the decisions and the game plans that they're going for, but it's going to be very difficult for the Goldango to actually make a comeback here. You should be able to live the Shadow Ball fairly easily from the Goldango on Matthew's side without the Life Orb. However, you'll probably need to knock out the Ursaluna in return with your own Make It Rain. We do see a Terrestrialization from Charlie going for the Terra Water, trying to remove the weakness to the ground type as well as the ghost type Shadow Ball on the board. Let's see which goal gonna. Oh my goodness, it is actually the Charlie Goldango that is faster, knocking out the Goldango on Matthew's side before it's able to move. Wow, that's incredible. And we do see the Goldango on Matthew's side did have a fair amount of bulk on it, maybe informing why it is that slow. As we see Headlong Rush come out, and it is just going to take the knockout on the Goldango very critically. These Goldangos with the Guava Berries are traditionally trained very bulkily, but yeah, actually able to survive that attack. If it had not, the -1 special defense on the Ursaluna and the ghost typing might have allowed the bulky Goldango to still get a KO after a couple of turns of burn, stall that with Protect, and close the set and actually win the match for Charlie.
We see Matthew just taking a breath of relief. That was a really tight finish for that game because Charlie had preserved that terrestrialization. Goldango absolutely could have survived that Headlong Rush, maybe with some different training or even a different damage roll. And if it had survived, that would have been the whole set over. Charlie would have been able to just finish things off with a Make It Rain. Really crucial information, though. Not something that I believe we were expecting as casters going into this match. The Goldango with the more defensive item actually seems to be either faster or speed tying with the Goldango on Matthew's side of the field. That really gives Charlie a lot more options if Matthew tries to play to this stall out trick room plan like he did in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Traditionally, you'll see the Guava Berry Goldango trained especially bulkily so that you can survive a +2 Shadow Ball from a Life Orb Goldango if you go for the Terrestrialization. This allows you to answer back with your own +2 Shadow Ball if you've traded those nasty plots on the first turn and get the favorable end of that trade with a knockout while still having your +2 Goldango to potentially sweep the rest of your opponent's team. Based on the speed order of the Goldangos, that might not be as defensively trained of a Goldango as we expected, which is why these trainers might be going for their Ursalunas as more important parts of the game plan and dealing damage. As we see a switch up on Matthew's side to Incineroar and Porygon 2. Critically, the first time Incineroar has been led in this set, and no Kilowattrel there to receive the competitive boost. As the Porygon 2's trade, I believe, the attack download boost in the face of the Goldango and the Incineroar.
Yeah, both players being really careful to pick leads in these matchups that make sure that the Porygon 2 can't snowball off of a special attack boost. I think that's really important. I also really like this adjustment from Matthew, seeing that the Goldango on Charlie's side is so fast and seeing how little mileage the Kilowattrel got, even when it was able to get the competitive boost active. Matthew is going to play a more Porygon 2-centric game here. We are going to see the Porygon 2 on Charlie's side just pivot out immediately. Doesn't necessarily need to set Trick Room if that's something Matthew's planning to do already. And we are going to see the Goldango go for a nasty plot, trying to set up just immediately while Incineroar comes in to give some fake out pressure later. That Goldango is able to set up a nasty plot pretty much for free as the Incineroar just goes for a U-turn into the other Incineroar. Does give the option for this Ursaluna to come onto the field, activate its Flame Orb, safe from any Intimidate. And if this is a Trick Room from Porygon 2, there's a lot of power coming out from Matthew's side of the field. Does have to contend with the Incineroar on Charlie's side having Fake Out Pressure active and being slower, so if the Ursaluna tries to Terra Ghost around the Fake Out, it can still take a bunch of damage from the knockoff. But I think a pretty solid positioning from Matthew, being able to immediately threaten this Goldango. Sure, it's gotten set up, but we've seen that a Headlong Rush can KO it even with a Terrestrialization. So Matthew's got a ton of offensive pressure if he can manage the complications introduced by the Incineroar.
No fake out comes out, no terrestrialization from Matthew, definitely getting the better of this turn. We see Ice Beam going to the Incineroar, doing a little bit of damage. Oh, and not even knocking off into the Ursaluna, maybe protecting a Protect. Could have gotten a knockoff, definitely not have taken a knockout, but would have done some good damage there. But Charlie just trying to get a bit of a mid-ground play there. U-turns out into his own Ursaluna, which will activate the Flame Orb if it survives this turn, I believe. And then we see Headlong Rush following up and knocking out the setup Goldango in one, just seeing the value of that Incineroar, or the Ursaluna coming in before the Incineroar and not getting intimidated, now has the safe KO with Headlong Rush, which we confirmed is a 1-hit KO from the previous game, regardless of terrestrialization. And now Matthew, with his Ursaluna setup in Trick Room up, tied in the game set, but up a Pokemon, is now really primed in this Trick Room, especially as Porygon 2 to start dealing a lot of damage to the remaining Pokemon. If you go for the Terra Fighting, you'll actually have super effective on every Pokemon on Charlie's side of the field, unless they go for a terrestrialization.
Yeah, some really nice play from Matthew. I think that's exactly what he needed to get out of the Trick Room, was making sure that Charlie's Goldengo couldn't be too much of a threat. But there is an interesting position here. Porygon 2 not getting the special attack boost still, so Matthew's safe from that particular threat. But with the option to pivot in Incineroar for a little bit more Intimidate, with the slower Ursaluna on Charlie's side, this Trick Room is steadily no longer working in Matthew's favor. It did exactly what it needed to, but Matthew now may need to stall out his own Trick Room a little bit to be able to get back to a fully favorable board state.
Yeah, exactly. Was able to take out Goldengo, which is the main Pokemon that Ursaluna is underspeeding on Matthew's side. But now, as you've mentioned, the Trick Room working more in Charlie's favor. As a result, trying to pivot out of that Trick Room, gets in the Incineroar, doesn't like the -1 special defense and defense. Ursaluna on the field tries to limit the damage of Charlie's Incineroar with the, rather his Ursaluna, by intimidating it with his Intimidate Incineroar. We see a Terra Ghost coming out from Charlie, doesn't want to be susceptible to a Terra Fighting attack from the Porygon 2, or even just an Ice Beam, becomes neutral to the latter and immune to the first, and Facade goes out into the Porygon 2, critically does not hit the Incineroar on switch in with the Headlong Rush, which would have been a knockout, as we saw in the previous set. Porygon 2 goes for a Terra Blast into Matthew's. Looks like it wouldn't be a 2 KO anyways, or at least it would have been close, but we do see that Matthew's Porygon 2 is the slower between him and Charlie's.
So one thing that is working in Matthew's favor then, being able to force an Ursaluna target to prevent the Porygon 2 just being able to recover back up. Although, as you mentioned, the Terra Blast, maybe not even a 2-hit KO. Really important for Charlie to be able to get that Terra Ghost off, though. It prevents the fake out pressure on this turn, assuming that the Incineroar on Matthew's side is maybe a little bit faster. There's also not the option to just go for a knockoff here. And very crucially, prevented the options that Matthew was threatening with a Terra Fighting Terra Blast. So we are just going to see a fake out going out into the Porygon 2. Headlong Rush going to be able to get a KO on the Incineroar on Matthew's side, but that does leave Porygon 2 free if it wants to do a little bit of damage into the Ursaluna, or more likely, it could recover back up to some pretty comfortable health here, as we're getting pretty late in Trick Room. But it is just going to be the Ice Beam going out into that Ursaluna. Matthew really prioritizing getting as much damage as possible off into this Ursaluna. It's really the main offensive threat left from Charlie's side, so one more Ice Beam and maybe a few turns of burn could really finish things off for Charlie's offensive prospects in this game.
Yeah, interesting decision to go for the Headlong Rush on the last turn of one of the more effective last turns of Trick Room. Could have gone for an Earthquake to KO the Porygon 2 and deal a lot of damage to the Incineroar. A little bit of damage into yourself, but you can readily recover that off. You might have some indication that he didn't want to, he really likes the Porygon 2 being slower than the Ursaluna here. He relatively safely has a knockout with Headlong Rush, or is at least threatening it as he switches out the Ursaluna, maybe trying to levy that threat to a better advantage, as we see the Ursaluna with the Ghost type, or actually no Ghost type, hasn't burned the Terastallization on Matthew's side here yet, but we do see that Incineroar enter the field as that Terastallization is finally used. We're going to see that's going to be the Ursaluna going to the Ghost type, will be susceptible to knockoffs in future turns, but we did see in the earlier games that the Incineroar is slower than the Ursaluna on Matthew's side. So yeah, what happens this turn could be critical. We see Terra Blast come out into the Porygon 2 on Charlie's side, not doing a lot of damage. Terra Blast exchanged. Going to be close. It's not a knockout on the Porygon 2, though. That Pokemon is stranded on the field, potentially going to get knocked out next turn. Oh my goodness, a critical hit. Oh, Porygon 2 is going to survive that Facade easily after the Intimidate being applied by the Incineroar. Did not catch that with a Headlong Rush, but instead went into the Porygon 2. Yeah, I would have had another turn to go for an Earthquake or just take the knockout in the subsequent turn, but that knockout is so key. The Porygon 2 on Charlie's team, the only Pokemon that can set up Trick Room, gain the speed advantage for the Ursaluna on his own side, and also recover damage. This Ursaluna on Matthew's side is well primed to sweep this game after that critical hit.
Yeah, Charlie's stranded with just two Pokemon that don't have any speed control. Ursaluna is going to be able to get the Headlong Rush KO on Incineroar, and now it's just one Ursaluna versus the whole world for the rest of Charlie's Game 3. Porygon 2, I believe, is just going to be going down this turn. We're going to have to see what the speed order is. It does actually get a quick recover off before the Ursaluna is able to attack, given that Trick Room is up now. But the Headlong Rush is going to finish that off. Critically, though, Ursaluna needing to commit Headlong Rush there means that it's now at reduced defenses and 30% health going into the rest of the game. I think that's going to be Matthew Henry sealing up this victory here.
Yeah, went down one game in the mirror. Usually just a really devastating issue in a set like this where you just have all the same options. Now you have to win 2 additional games relative to your opponent only needing 1 in a set where you have all the same options. But yeah, the small differences between their teams allowing this Ursaluna to go down on Charlie's side. We see the Goldango making it rain for one final time, converting to the victory for Matthew Henry, a player who's been on a lot of people's eyes in the Masters division and the Seniors division, finally able to claim this Latin American title, his first international title. Just an incredible finish for him. Gotta feel amazing.
I am so impressed by Matthew in this set. That was such a really intense set to be going into. Even just, I didn't know that he was going to win game 2 until the final credits rolled. Like, Goldango could have absolutely survived that attack, and then Matthew really completely overhauled his strategy because he needed to adapt a ton based on the speed orders here. Beat someone who beat him in Swifts. We were tossing out a word a little bit in chat before jumping into casting this, and some people were saying maybe Prodigy is an apt descriptor of Matthew, and I think we can see why now. That was some really impressive play.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my friends was actually, he played Matthew on ladder by chance. He was like, you know what, this guy's really good. I could use some advice from him. And he messaged him and he was like, yeah, I'm like 14. So yeah, we've just been calling him Prodigy since then. But yeah, really proving why he's earned that title along with the international title here. I do want to point out that in game 3, it was just such a masterful use of speed control where, you know, Ursaluna actually outsped 3 of the Pokemon on Charlie's team. However, just using the Trick Room to leverage the Ursaluna against the one Pokemon that it was slower than, and then just slowly using his defensive resources to delay the pace of the game for his own Trick Room to expire so that his now faster Ursaluna could clean up the game, and that's exactly what happened. These more complex game plans are a lot more difficult for even Masters Division players to pull off or even theorize doing, and to do it in game 3 of an international with everything on the line, just a testament to the absolute confidence and skill that Matthew has.
Yeah, I can't imagine a more intricate game plan for like any age division in such a high stakes match, and just such high quality Pokemon to be able to see. This is the kind of wonderful interaction that we see by specifically the move Trick Room. I think one of the moves that in and of itself is one of the like most difficult strategies to use was just spectacular to see. I think there were so many times where Matthew was needing to take not clear moves that advanced the progress in every situation, but that were like situationally exactly what he needed at a specific moment, that then gave a ton of wonderful opportunities going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Just can't believe the quality of finals we got on both the juniors and the Masters side. Just such high quality level of play from players that are just so much younger than the Masters players we're used to seeing, but just showing that the level of practice and preparation and commitment to the game they have is on par with the Masters, just being displayed through their immaculate gameplay. I believe that's going to be it for us on our end. Yeah, that's all I have, Hayden. Do you have anything else to talk about these amazing lower age division casts?
Yeah, I think the only thing to mention is just how honored I am that we got to see 2 incredible sets that went to 3 games. I could imagine either of these sets having happened on a Masters stream, and it was really exciting to see them show up in these younger age divisions. Pokemon has such a promising future with all of these wonderful players slowly aging up into higher age divisions, and I'm just really honored to have been able to cast this with you, Cedric.
Absolutely. A fantastic joy to be featured on the Victory Road cast with, of course, the 2013 Senior Division champion. No more appropriate matches than the lower divisions, junior and seniors. Yeah, that's going to be it for us. I hope you guys enjoyed our cast for the Latin American International Championships. We're going to be moving into the Masters Division cast with Matt and Ben on the caster's desk. We're going to be featuring Juan Salerno versus Yuma Kinagawa. Just an incredible pair of players. Latin America trying to defend its title with Juan, and then Kinagawa trying to claim his first international title after becoming the Japan national champion last year. High stakes, incredible trainers. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned.